Good evening, everyone, for everybody joining here from America, and good morning to everyone who is joining from India. Welcome to University of Silicanandra, these weekly webinars. So we have been doing this for last 1 month. We have completed 3 webinars, and today we have a wonderful topic, Padams and Javalis. And we have 2 professors, from our Kuchipudi department at the University of Silicanandra. Department Chair Dr. Yashoda Thakur Garu will lead with the help of Devi Girish Chandra Garu, who is also faculty at the Kuchipudi department. So, University of Silicanandra is a very unique university. It is an American university, and our focus is Indian fine arts and languages. We have 5 departments here today: Kuchipudi dance, Bharatanatyam, Carnatic music, Sanskrit and Telugu languages. And we are offering masters in Kuchipudi and Carnatic music, and diploma and certificate in all the 5 departments. Our focus is to promote not only teaching, but also encourage research and publications in this university. So our website is universityofsilicanandra.org. So please go there, take a look at what we are offering. If you are interested, please reach out to us and take advantage of it. So without further ado, I will hand it over to our Kuchipudi Department's Chair, Dr. Yashoda Garu, to start the webinar. The topic for today is Padam and Javali. Yashoda Garu, it's all yours.
Thank you, Raj Garu. Namaskaram to all of you. We'll first like to start, Devi and I would like to acknowledge the contribution of the courtesans, the writers, the patrons, and the teachers of the modern classical dances like Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, who took it upon themselves to perform to these padams and javalis, and in the process kept at least a few of these pieces alive today. It's always a pleasure to present and perform under the aegis of the organization you work for. And for Devi and I, it is the University of Silicanandra. Well, about Padams and Javalis, we can spend days and nights scattered all over the floor, having it the exotic food the university gives us and keep talking about them, dancing about them, emoting to the Padams and Javalis. Since essentially it's all about bhoga after all. And this talk will limit itself, I hope, to 45 minutes. And it will focus on, the focus of this talk is about how a dancer can approach a padam or a javali, whether it is a pre-learned one or it is a javali in the formation, if you're choreographing one. And we divide this talk into 2 sections, the padam and the javali. Each section will deal with a small intro from Devi, and I will present a padam, and it will also deal with the different approaches you can take up to look at a padam and a javali when you prefer to learn about it or you learn it also. I will present a padam in the Kalavantulu style, in the Telugu Devadasi, the courtesan style, because I haven't learned any padam in the Kuchipudi style. And Devi will present a javali in the Kuchipudi style, which is choreographed by Vempati Master Garu. A small disclaimer will be that this talk will not detail the various composers and choreographers of javalis and padams. This talk aims at kindling a thirst for a very comprehensive presentation based on extensive study and involvement, which is quintessential to such history-based genres. Once this thirst is in place, we at the university will lead you to avenues of this elixir. I give the stage to Devi. Devi, please give us an introduction of the Padams, Devi.
Namaskaram to all. We start our introduction with Dr. Pappu Venugopala Rao's quote from his book Fragrance of Padam, and he says, any meaningful syllabic composition can be called a padam. Same way, A.K. Ramanujan described Padam as a short musical composition of light classical nature intended to be sung and often danced. Originally, they belonged to the professional caste of dancers, singers, devdasis, and to their male counterparts, natvanas, who were associated with both temples and the royal courts in late medieval period of South India. Padams were composed throughout India. Early examples in Sanskrit could be that of Jayadeva's famous devotional poem, the Gita Govinda. But there are research scholars who contest this by saying that the pattern of Gita Govinda doesn't fall into the genre of Padam. However, in South India, the genre assumed a standardized form in the second half of 15th century with a Telugu Padam composed by the great temple poet Annamacharya, and later his knowledge has been enlarged by other contributors like Kshetraya and Sarangapani. The Padam follow a structure or format of tripartite, which is a Pallavi, Anupallavi, and a Charanam. It also has a signature of each poet. For instance, Annamacharya, it is Venkateshwara, and Kshetraya, it is Mua Gopala, and so on. Because of the vastness of the topic, we have to we have to also follow the time constraint of our webinar. The introduction part is concluded here, and I would like Yashoda ma'am to talk or elaborate more on the different approaches one must take in understanding and presenting a padam as a choreographer or a performer.
Thank you, Devi. Since you spoke about Kshetriya, we'll begin from there, the Nayaka period. So, how I would look at a Padam after this work with the Kalavantalu and the Padam Javali genre is whether it is a Padam or a Javali. I would say if you are a dancer, it is very important that you look at it from the historical point of view, the history point of view, which means when is it placed, what time does it belong to, under what ethos has it been written. We'll come back to that. You also need to look at how you would embody the padam. By embodying, I mean, how would you embody it physically? How would you embody it psychologically also? We'll go into the detail of that. The third one I really want to talk about, I really want to mention is what is the role of the texts which have given you the various the tables and the different divisions of the Nayikas, the kinds of heroines. So, what is the role of these texts when you approach a Padam or a Javali? And it goes for both. Let's come back to the historical approach. When you take history, you have to look at it from definitely from the social point of view, the political, cultural, aesthetic, I must say the geographical point of view also. Basically, that gives you the rest of the ideas about the society and the politics. Let's take the Nayaka period because that is when you will notice that we do have songs, earlier songs, which are devotion based, love based, but this extreme eroticism, extreme sensuality in the songs, you will find from Kshetriya onwards, from the Nayaka period onwards, which is the 16th to 18th century. So, who were they? The Nayakas were the Telugu non Brahmin communities. Very interestingly, they were also not called the Kshatriyas, but they were the kings. They were the ones who went from the Telugu land. They traveled all the way down south to Tanjavur. That was also the period when the Muslim invasion was taking over and the Andhra region was facing the threat of Muslim dominance. So you had these people who went, the Balijas, and Balijas are the agricultural community, who went all the way down south and chose areas in Tamil Nadu which were not inhabited too much. They settled down there and started their agrarian work. They took over the land and started cultivating and started becoming powerful, though they did work under the allegiance of the Vijayanagara Nayakas. They were reporting to them, but then eventually they became independent kings. They being agrarians, I like to think of it this way, they being agriculture based and the kind who will work hard and very close to earth, the body became very important for them. Whether it was to work, sweat it out, work, food becomes important. Now you know why I spoke about exotic food when I was talking about padams. Food, as in the taste, the rasa, is so important. And the bhoga of it, the sensuality of it through the body becomes very important for the Nayaka at that time during the Nayaka period, because this body was used as an instrument whether to work and get their earning, whether to transcend it and reach a higher realm if you want to, which was totally subjective as it always is, or whether you just want to enjoy yourself and live in a state of extravagance, because that was the period of extravagance. This was also the time when our, we very much dancers use the terms of Swiya, Parakiya, and Samanya. So Swiya is the one who is married and is dedicated to her husband. Parakiya is the one who's married and who has a paramour. She has a lover outside her marriage. The Samanya is the mercenary. In today's language, she's the sex worker, basically. So these categories, you see them, you see a demarked categories uh, during the Nayaka period in Kshetraya Padams and then followed by Sarangapani and others. Brilliant literature and brilliant performance genres came up during the Nayaka period. When it comes to embodying of the Padams, we are talking about physicality, physically and psychologically embodying the Padams. When you perform it, what is the body language you would like to use? Okay, today I see dancers. Okay. You see this rolling of the eyes, shrugging, these kind of movements. Would you apply this kind of body language to a padam which is written in the 16th and 18th centuries, 16th to 17th centuries? Does it gel? You may want to. There is nobody who will question you, but does it gel? You might want to look into that. So how would you know the body language? How would I know the body language of a person, of a lady from the 16th century? By reading a little bit. Reading a little bit of literature, reading the description of the Nayikas, because our literature gives us graphic detail about how the lady moved her little finger or how she set her pallu right. You know, everything reflects in your dance. When it comes to the psychological side, part of it, it's so important because our Nayika Vedas are an extensive study on the psychology of the woman, basically. To the point that at one time when I was younger, I wanted to say, why don't they just leave us alone? Why do they talk so much about women? You know? But then I realized there is nothing else that gives so much beauty to talk about. It is the woman, finally. So the woman, the Nayika, has been divided on various bases. She's been divided. I'm not using too much Sanskrit jargon here, but because I want the flow to be smoother. She's been divided on the basis of her physical attributes, as in how tall is she, how short is she, what's her complexion, and where does she have her birthmarks. You know, based on this, she's been divided on the basis of her basis of physical attributes. She's been categorized. I won't say divided. She's been categorized on the basis of her social status. Is she a queen? Is she a queen's closest confidant? Is she the confidant's friend? So there is a different name for each category, right? Is she a Samanya Naika? As I said, she's the mercenary, the sex worker. So there is her social status here. She's been divided based on her preferences in romance. As I said, is she dedicated to just her husband? Does she have somebody that she loves outside her marriage? Is she a sex worker? In the Samanya Naika, is it her profession? And does she, like Anupama was just telling me about Akbar Shah saying in Sringara Manjari, that there are 5 kinds of sex workers. It's very interesting. Maybe we can talk about that at a later point. Then she's also categorized based on her experience in love. Is she just beginning to fall in love and she doesn't know it yet? Or has she just fallen in love and is trying to understand what it means? Or is she the experienced one who knows all about love? The Mugdha, Madhya, and Praudha? And she's been categorized based on her states of mind, very, very volatile. The dancers would connect with the term Ashtavidha Naikavasthas. Very volatile, it can change. We women can change every second. Besides all this, the context in which the song is written and the context in which it is being performed is very, very important. So these Naika Bhedas have been detailed very lucidly in English language in Papu Sir's Rasamanjari. It may be good for you to use that. Then, a very important point that you must understand is that all these avasthas or all these Naikas exist in all of us. I would go to the extent of saying they exist in all man and woman, but that's a deeper subject. Let's talk about women for now. They exist in all of us. It is just up to us to address that particular mood or that particular side of us, which are all in dormant state, awaken them, use it at that particular time, and then say, go back to sleep and come back to your personality. Yeah? At this point, I just want to, I've been doing too much talking. A small projection of one of the Kalavantulu ladies, Madhula Janakama, who is no more now. Anu will remember both of us had gone to her together once. And a small 1-minute piece of Madhula Janakama doing a piece here. And Devi will do that for me. What she basically is saying is, she's saying to her Nayaka, her hero, just be happy with the union that we had before. Don't keep pressurizing me. Don't, because now I'm married, Don't keep going back to that and asking me to come to you now. It's a little difficult for me. Momata Pettakurai, don't put me in a delicate spot. Okay. Um, let's come to the text part of it. So, what is the role of the text? We as dancers are generally told this is this Naika, that is that Naika. Go to this book and refer to that. So, the role of the text comes in as a support to what you have already done. It comes in as a support to the background work that you have done, also on your own self, visiting your own self and identifying where these Naikas exist within you. I would dare say removing all blocks and judgment of all women or just any genre, remove all judgment, be accepting, and then when you begin to do it and you're stuck at a particular point, then you read the text. Believe me, you get the best benefit out of the text. Also, okay, we'll come to that a little later. When it comes to the contemporary aspect, these padams, which were performed, were also performed later in the modern classical dance of Kuchipudi. And since it is from the Kuchipudi department, I do want to show you just one clip of the legend Vedantam Satyanarayana Sarma Garu performing or teaching the boys. The Kuchipudi, as all of us know, is the form that the Brahmin community of Kuchipudi village have started the dance form, or they performed that originally. Now everybody else does it. So here you find him teaching a cluster of boys this extremely romantic padam, which says, the padam originally starts with Okasarike ilagaite ohoho ideti ratita. Only once and you are tired. What kind of lovemaking is this? And she says, Makkuva Teechara Madana Gopala. Come and satisfy me, Madana Gopala. It's a very open, very blatant, very cute padam that I had learned from another lady, and I have also seen the one of the courtesan ladies, and I had seen Madhula Venkat Lakshmama dance this. This padam, the lady, I'll tell you about it after you watch Satyanarayan Sarma Garu teach this padam.
Sri Siddhendra Kalakshetram is the recognized institution in Kuchipudi village, safeguarding its dance heritage. Vedantam Satyanarayana Sharma, Padma Shri, principal of the Kalakshetram, reveals the nuances of Abhinaya, facial expression, to the students. The Kuchipudi dance adheres to the principles laid down in the Natya Shastra.
So, what is significant of this padam? This was the padam that was used to vilify the Devadasi ladies, the courtesans, and they were sidelined saying such padams are not performed by us. But then this is a padam performed by the Kuchipudi families, recorded by the Government of India through the Films Division and given to you. Now, this is about, let's come to the contemporary side of it, because there is a whole history that there is a journey that this padam has traveled. Very interestingly, at a later stage, you will find that yesterday, Varija, our Telugu faculty, Dr. Varija Rani, who has spent 24 hours on a certain padam that I gave, Saroja, Dr. Saroja and Varija Rani, I'm so grateful to both of you. I just took this from my archive and I sent it to them and said, please give me the words of this, set it to the, just do the music and sing it for me, Saroja. And they worked on it and gave it to me. So she told me, this is Anya Desyam, Yashoda Garu. There are Bejar Ane, that's the word that's used, which comes much later. It's the contemporary term that has come into the padam. So this particular padam, we have this question of Jivatma, Paramatma, which I know will come up during the question answer session. But there are padams which are written exclusively for kings. And this particular padam is written during the 1850s for Ananda Gajapati Raju, the king Ananda Gajapati Raju in Vijayanagaram. So this padam, which I will present to you, is also a parakiya where she's married. She's just married, but she's in love with the king, Ananda Gajapati Raju. And she says, why are you in such a hurry? Wait, I will come to you. Don't come into the house. No, I can't entertain you inside the house. Don't come after me like this. I will come to you. She says this, and I'm only doing one charanam, which I never do as in a performance. I will do the whole padam, but here I'm only doing one or two charanams. And then she says, she happens to go in this particular padam. There is a time lapse. Initially, there is also a change in location. initially he's at her doorstep and she says, it's time that my husband is coming, go. And then she actually goes with him and she says, now I'm with you, I can't leave you and go. Oh, Rajabhoja, you are the best in love making, and you are Cupid. Cupid is a loose translation of Manmadha, but then I use that word. You are Manmadha reborn, or the best of Manmadha. I can't leave you and go. So you will have words like Bejaru, which is a much later edition. Devi, can we have that, Devi?
ಇಂದೋಗಿ ತೊಂದರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರಣಿ ಒಂದು ಕೂಡದ ತಾಳರ ಎಂದೋಗಿ ಅವರ ಎಂದೋಗಿ ಅಬ್ಬ ಎಂದೋಗಿ ಓ ಎಂದೋಗಿ ತೊಂದರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರಣಿ ಒಂದು ಕೂಡದ ಕಾಲರ ನಾವೆಂಟದಿರದ ಕುರ ನೀವೆಂಟಲೇ ಭತ್ತದ ನಂಟೆ ನಮ್ಮವೇ ಬೇಡಿರ ಒಂಟಿ ಪೈ ಜಯಸಿ ನಾಚಂಟಿ ಪೈ ಜಯಸಿ ಸರಸೋತ್ತುಲಾಡೆವು ಕಂಠಸೂತ್ರವು ಮಗನಿ ಕಂಠಪಡಿತೆ ತಂಟ ಇಂಟಿ ಗೋಪಲ ಕಗದುರ ಮಾ ಇಂಟಿ ಗೋಪಲ ಕಗದುರ ನಿನ್ನೆ ಮನ್ನಂತೆ ಮನಸ್ಸು ನೋಚನು ಚಕ್ಕನಂಟದ ಗಡಿಯ ಗೋಪಲ ಇಂಟಿಕೇದೋ ವಿಧಿ ಗೋಚನರ ಎಂದೋಗಿ ತೊಂದರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರ ಸುಂದರ ಕಾರಣಿ ಒಂದು ಕೂಡದ ಕಾಲರ ಯಜಮಾಯರ వచ్చి పోజాలను విడచి బేజారయ్యర మనసు భోజాలు బులవేళ పోయి వచ్చద స్వామి ఏ జంపోనమ్మగా ఏ మారునో విఠల భోగ భోజ విధౌత్య మన్మద భోజ కదరా నిన్ను గూడి రాజశ్రీ ఆనంద గజపతి ರಾಜಮಹಾರಾಜಮಡಿರೆ ಭೋಗ ಭೋಜ ವಿಧೌತ್ಯ ಮನ್ಮದ ಭೋಜ ಕದರ ನಿನ್ನು ಗೂಡಿ ರಾಜಶ್ರೀ ಆನಂದ ಗಜಪತಿ ರಾಜಮಹಾರಾಜಮಡಿರೆ ಇಂದೋಗಿ ತೊಂದರ ಸುಂದರ
So that's a little bit about the padams. I think we should move to the Javalis, and Devi will give us an introduction about the Javalis, Devi.
Yes. Javalis, right from the definition and etymology of Javali, Reverend F. Kittel, in his Kannada English dictionary, had defined Javali as a kind of livid poetry, evidently derived from the Kannada word Javala, which he translates as common, vulgar, or insignificant. Javali also shares a tripartite structure is that of Pada, like Pallavi, Anupallavi, and Charanam. Like songs in the Telugu Padams, Javalis are usually dedicated to localized form of Krishna. For instance, the Javalis of Patnam Subramanya Iyer are identified through his inclusion of the names Venkatesha or Varada Venkatesha. The two major historical trajectories that the scholar states the Javali has underwent is that it has been initiated and evolved from the Mysore court under the patronage of Udayar kings. And it was Chinnaya who had composed the songs that were known as Javalis. And in the court of Swatitranal Maharaja, it was Vadivelu who has composed this thing. Though Javalis are traditionally understood as Telugu or Kannada genre, Javalis became extremely popular as Tamil genre, which is meant for the songs for theatrical performances. This tradition of salon based performance or the modern chamber performances was very common in the Telugu speaking parts of the Madras Presidency from the late 18th century onward. Here, the troops of courtesan performers, who were known as Kalavantulus, were contracted to perform in the homes of Brahmin or non-elite for
Non-Brahmin elite.
some non-Brahmin elite for some festivities or any functions at their home. To conclude the introduction, I would like to quote Professor Soneji. He says, Javli is unabashedly erotic, sometimes sarcastic, and always upbeat Javalis, and are also signs of the volatile, sexually charged space of the salon one. I would also love to hear it from you, the social reform part of Javali.
That's a very long discussion. It can go on and on forever. But then we will talk about that too. As you said, Javali itself is a very recent composition, the 19th century or so. So by then we had the British here anyway. We had the Mughals here and we had the British here. And till the 1857, we had them in the form of the East India Company. But the company had closed down, and 1858 onwards, we had the crown, the British crown ruling us. So, in any case, the whole concept of Javali itself came up to kind of lighten it a little bit. How is it different from a padam? It is not really very different from a padam, except that the language is lighter, it's a little easier than padam. The lines are shorter. The lines of a javali become shorter. The music becomes upbeat. And when you perform it, a performer would know when you perform it that when you perform for a javali, it's a different aesthetic completely, and it's a different experience when you do a javali and when you do a padam too. And the salon performance, the chamber performances that you said were called the Mezuvani at that time, just to give you the word. Now, so were they performing this concept of English music, the colonial influence coming in, has happened everywhere. It has happened in literature, it has happened in music also. In fact, you have Tyagaraja's Kirtanas and Dikshitulu's Kirtanas. The Notuswarams are an influence of the Western, the colonial influence. So the same thing has come into, it may have been influenced also. We cannot undermine the influence of cinema and popular music on Javali, because the whole concept of Javali is to give popular music, popular expression to audience. So you cannot undermine the influence of music that people enjoyed. Sure, we had Western influence, no doubt about it, along with our own Desi influences. Just to go back and apply those approaches that we were talking about, historical approach, of course, applies to Javalis perfectly. When it comes to the textual, the psychological side, and when you're talking about the Sviya, Parakiya, Samanya, or the different categorizations of the Nayikas, particularly in Javalis, also in Padams, really, you cannot, there are no watertight compartments for these Nayikas, one. But having said that, generally the script itself gives away the Nayika. It tells you what Nayika it is, provided you don't stop at reading just the Pallavi and deciding the Nayika. You have to read the whole thing. You have to read the whole thing, absorb it, and then come to a decision. You must look at how the choreography has been done, how it has been approached, and before you decide on the Javali. So Devi will give you an example of. She'll dance to Parula Namata Namavaddu is a very famous Javali. Everybody knows, and Venpati Master Garu in Kuchipudi has made it iconic. So we do have arguments which say this is Sriya Nayaka because there is Prana Nayaka there. Prana Nayaka you can say to everybody. Today the word darling is used everywhere. Is the person really your darling is questionable. So if she's a Samanya Nayika, she will darling everybody. So Prananayaka can be everybody's. It can be applied to anybody at all. That's one thing. How Master Garu choreographed it, if you just have a look, then I will talk about it. Devi, can we have that on, please? I like that wall piece behind you. Very nicely done. Anyway, the Javali says, don't listen to what others say. Parulanna matter. Oh, my dear, the Prananayaka, the hero of my heart. Don't believe what other people say to you. And then in this particular charanam, she says that woman who has a very graceful walk, supposedly graceful walk, some woman has drugged you. Yavate neeku mandu petera, she has drugged you. Forget about, tell me who has done that and come and make love to me. Okay. Now, it is okay for all of us. The argument is Sviya. Let's say it is that woman who's married and is dedicated to her husband and is talking about this. She will say, what is wrong with you? Has somebody drugged you? And the matter ends there. When it comes to a Samanya, but in the choreography, it doesn't stop at has somebody drugged you. She is actually showing the whole process of which plant to go to, which tree to go to, how many leaves to pick up, how you grind it, and if you notice, she she's she kind of crushes it in a particular pattern, picks it up, applies it on the head, not make him smell it because she knows this particular mandu, this particular drug is to be applied on the head, put it on the head, and then he's drugged. So this kind of detail only an experienced person would know. And I don't think the woman who's dedicated to the husband would drug her husband or needs to drug her husband, you know. So I would look at it as a Samanya Naika. Again, it's an interpretation. Maybe if I choreographed it differently, this song wouldn't have been a Samanya Naika. I can do it as a Swiya Naika also. That's one thing. We must note that the padams, the area where the padams and the javalis were written, did you say this, Devi? Did I miss that? The location is different. So while the padams were written in the temple or the court, the javalis were written in a very business-based colonial setup and in a commercial setup. So, since the location is also, when I said the geography makes a difference, this is what I mean. The whole ethos under which the songs are composed is different. So, that will definitely reflect in the literature and the presentation too. And the audience for whom these were performed was different. The padams were performed for a completely different audience, while the javalis were performed for a more contemporary at that time audience. Right? Um, Should we stop now, Devi? Should we open it for question answers?
One point, if you can elaborate more, ma'am, about the gaze,
Ah,
like how you perceive a text, how the text has been perceived, and how the Naika has been perceived, and how
so,
the avasthas are perceived in a Javli.
okay, I think this was a question that came to me from our student Ameya also. So we'll talk about it. As I was saying again, how the text has been perceived again comes from also the dancer's experience and the dancer's perspective, also the cultural background of the dancer. So, how much are you willing to place yourself in that time and that period and then look at that? That's what I meant when I said look at it from the historical point of view. In fact, the whole thing really, now that we are talking about it, how the gaze should be from the historical point of view, from the aesthetic point of view, and from your own psychological, the sattva point of view. These are, gaze basically means your approach, right? So this is one way you look at it from these areas, and how would you establish the avastha now, depending on how is the padam a standalone piece, or is it a piece that is part of a yakshagana? Like in Kuchipudi, these padams and javalis, I understand at a later stage, I have no examples for that though. The padams were kept into, like Yamini had actually demonstrated, told us about it. They were kept into the yakshagana for that particular naika. So then you look at it from different perspective completely. Like Satyanarayan Sarmagaru had put Jayadeva Ashtapadi for Usha. How far it is acceptable, I don't know. But when he put it for Usha, then the way it is enacted completely changes because it is a Mugdha from a different perspective. Radha Rani is from a different milieu completely. Right? That's one thing. This is I would like to talk about the gaze of the dancer while dancing the padams and javalis. Gaze of the audience, of course, is very subjective, of the spectator is subjective. But where does the dancer look? Since we are talking about how a dancer choreographs and performs it. So initially, when the Kalavantalu ladies did it, when the Devadasis did it, they actually looked at the patron sitting in front of them. It was direct eye contact. They did not kind of make it some divine thing. It was divine within themselves. So they looked at the patron and they directly performed it for them. Today, you won't see me, you see me doing that in one padam. in the last padam. But not always. Sometimes I might want to look just above the head and do it because that patron may not. Okay, when I say this, if I'm placing myself in the 16th century, my spectator also has to place himself in the 16th century for me to connect. Would the spectator connect? Would the spectator place himself or herself in the 16th century? Then, if he doesn't or she doesn't, then there is a kind of a block for me there. So I might want to look at his hair and do it, and visualize my 16th century hero and do it. So this also is a different. Again, if I have somebody who is a rasika, who knows what I'm doing and who completely connects with what I'm doing, then I'd like to do it for him or her and look directly at that person and do this. Yeah. Um, it is definitely not something removed from the audience dancer connection. It is there, very much there. Audience and dancer together make the performance complete. We didn't do any kshetraya. We can't conclude a Padam Javali talk without kshetraya. So let's have one kshetraya Padam where she said, this is Muva Gopala. To Krishna or to her Nayaka, she says, where do I hide you? Look at all those women standing outside. They have, they have challenged amongst themselves as to who is going to, the minute you go out of my house, they're going to kidnap you and take you away and make love to you. They want to take the nectar from your lips and hug you. How do I hide you? There's this Naika, very insecure Naika. I'm talking about all women. This Naika who's clinging to her husband or her lover and says, uh, just stay here, don't go from here. Those women are going to really, I don't like what they want to do with you. And towards the end, this I have learned from Anna Bathula Lakshmi Mangatayar garu. Towards the end, a little twist I had given is saying she gets over that insecurity. She says, I'm going to, in my sleep, maybe the hug, the embrace, our embrace will loosen and then they will kidnap you from me. No, I'm going to tie you to my braid. I'm going to, with my braid and keep you to myself. And then towards the end, she says, what nonsense? How can I even bind you? I'm going to bind you in my heart. But I shouldn't have told you all this. I should have left it to you to figure it out. Just play it. And I would like to conclude with this padam. Just one word I want to tell all the dancers here. We intellectualize the songs, right? We intellectualize them from all these perspectives. We do a lot of reading, we do a lot of learning, we do a lot of dancing. Even the intellectualization has to be internalized. It is when we internalize it and make it a part of us, and then we just go there and perform it, somehow everything falls in place. You may not be in the costume from the 18th century, but somehow that is glossed over, that is not even seen by the spectator when you internalize it and then perform it. Maybe that's a little, you can work on that area when you have to do your padams and javalis. Yes, Devi.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Yashoda Garu, thank you, and Devi Garu, thank you for all those wonderful videos and presentation. It's a wonderful webinar. That nice, very nice topic. And today we have so many people with so many questions. Obviously, so if you go to your participants panel, you would have a raise hand feature. Please raise your hand, and you can ask any questions. So we probably will give the first choice to the students today, maybe not the University of Silicon faculty. We have so many people from other departments also. So so let us go there. And Sridhar Garu, can you please monitor, I don't see any questions or hands raised so far. So, okay. So
me
we
neither,
have,
Raj garu.
Okay, we see Sivatmika.
Hello, I've enjoyed so much. I've seen so many expressions, and most of my answers have been cleared, but I still have two questions. So the first one is, I'm a 17-year-old student. So how do I understand such tough words, tough scriptures, or tough texts? And the second one is, how do I imagine myself in such complex scenarios? Like in the Kshetraya Padam, ma'am has shown, there are so many expressions that we have to show our insecurity, we have to show love, we have to be angry on those who are waiting outside for our Nayaka. There are so many. So how do I imagine myself there and then perform?
I get your point, Shivatmika. So, first of all, point number one, what's given is a dancer has to work in collaboration. We have to work in collaboration with literature persons, and we have to work in collaboration with musicians, and we have to do our study and reading. Number one. Second thing is, I will be a little conclusive and a little harsh when I say padams and javalis are not until you develop the maturity for it. The maturity may come at 50, doesn't matter. Let the fruit ripen naturally. Let's not artificially ripen. The most devastating act that's happening is when a 10-year-old does a super erotic padam or a javali. Forget about dance, you're actually damaging her life. So if you feel you're not ready for it, wait. No problem. You have 100 years to live. You can do it. I'm 48 and I'm just getting my grip on how to do a padam or a javali. So there is a long time. Wait. We can do other songs which are very beautiful. We can dance to those. Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay. Niharika Pendekanti, please unmute yourself.
Niharika, good to see you.
Hi, Yashodaka. Same here. So good to see you.
Yes.
So much information. Thank you so much. But my question actually resonates with what Sri Sivatmika, right? The previous kid, she asked. I'm definitely more than 17, but it is actually part of Silicon Andhra Kuchipudi syllabus for third year, the padams. So how are, as a teacher, how are we supposed to explain it to the kids? Because that's something that I've been running into.
So we do have padams which are meant for that age also, Niharika. You have to pick them up. You have to do a little bit of research. Why aren't you doing a master's with us?
No, that's on. I have been in hibernation for so long. I'm out of my hibernation, so.
So now.
Yes.
We do a lot of this. We do a lot of this study, and it opens windows. To what happens then is you know exactly what to teach the child. We as dancers, children, dancers, we as dancers have a major social responsibility in creating a healthy society. So when we teach something to the child, you have to see whether it suits the psyche and the age or not. Because she may not become a Yamini Krishnamurti tomorrow. She may not even dance 2 years later. But what you're putting into her mind will stay with her for her lifetime. So you have a responsibility when you're teaching. So you have to do your research. There are songs which are meant for younger kids also. You can do something like that.
Right. No, that I agree. But it's just in context with the webinar today and in context with the previous question, I thought that's something that's been like on my mind too. Like you have to pick and choose your battles kind of thing.
Absolutely. So you need to do your research before the battle. Check what's available.
Yes, I agree.
To do your research and deal with it.
Yes. Thanks,
We are here to help you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? I don't see any more hands. There were a couple of them who were, asking some questions in the chat. If you could, raise your hand and then maybe speak up what that question is, it would be good for everybody to know. Go ahead.
Raju garu, Kala Bharti garu has raised her hand.
Okay.
Bharti, yes.
Okay, please go ahead, Kala garu.
Akka, the previous padam, the first padam, when you said like the Samanya Nayaka and the Sriya Nayaka, like you may have composed it in Sriya Nayaka sorts of thing, no? So does it depend on the perception of our view or like the textual perception?
Not every Javali or not every Padam Bharati. I have to tell you this very clearly. You can't take just any song and put it into any Naika. Because sometimes the song is explicitly, like the other Padam that I did, she says, if my husband sees, then it'll be a mess. So that is a very clear Parakiya Naika. You can't say my perspective of this is a Sriya Naika and then choreograph it differently, then that's not a good way to do it at all. Only for this, because this particular Javali does not specify anywhere except the Prananayaka part of it, which also can be tweaked and spoken, looked at from a different angle. You can't look at it. You can look at it from different ways.
Thank you, Yashoda garu. Any more questions from anyone?
Yeah, hello.
Now,
is everybody able to hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Yashoda garu. This is Jyotirmai from Virginia.
Jyoti.
Yeah. Thank you for sending me the invite. It was a very wonderful presentation. And I'm not sure if this is out of scope for today's discussion, but wanted to know the basic differences between a padam and a padavarnam, if I may ask.
It's a completely different genre. Padavarnam is a musical and a literary based genre. So Padam has no swarams, and you don't have, generally, ideally, a Padam would not have nritta into it. Nritta in the sense, the technical side of dance,
Yeah.
or the technical, even the mnemonics, the musical mnemonics are not sung in a Padam. It is a completely literature based one.
Okay.
And even the Padavarnam originally was Shringara based only. Later you have Bhakti based Padavarnams that have come. So they're diametrically opposite, in fact. Yes, there is Shringara in Padavarnam also, but you will not have this kind of variation and looking at the Naika and, delineating the Naika, talking about it. This kind of super eroticism used to be there at one time in the Padavarnams, which we have very sacredly taken off all the Sahityam and made all of them Tanavarnams now.
Okay. Yeah.
That's another context completely.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I saw one question I happened to, where you said, can you talk to us about the Abhinaya of the Devadasis? I don't know who has said that. Now, how... Okay.
Ma'am, could you explain Devdasi way of presenting the Padam and Javali and the Ganika's way of presenting differences?
So, Swapna, this is quite a vast subject. We can have a whole... Actually, both Anu and I talk quite a bit about this Abhinaya exposition in the master's course, because at different stages it is different. So, and it's not like a separate course, but it is inveigled into all the other courses that we talk about, that we teach. So you need to pick from that and understand. We can have another discussion on this, Swapna. Is this our Swapna from master's course, Swapna? I don't think so. We can talk about it at some time, Swapna. Either I didn't leave too much scope for doubt, or you didn't have much to ask.
Now we have somebody here raising hand, Aranyani.
Aranyani, hi,
Yes.
Aranyani.
Yes, hello. Namaste, Akka. Namaste, everybody else. Sorry, I'm a little disoriented because it's early in the morning here in India. But I just wanted to ask, because I've been hearing the discussions about interpretation. What Yashoda Akka, would your opinion be on I know this is also probably not a question that can be answered in a hurry. But what is the degree to which one can interpret a text or a piece of poetry in an effort to maybe make it seem, I don't know how to say this. Actually, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. What is the degree to which we can interpret a text for in a way that it speaks to us as opposed to the literal text itself?
Okay, so this is a dicey question, but then there are, again, it's very subjective, Aranini. The whole thing about Padams and Javalis is it leaves a lot to the subject, you know.
Right.
But then, so how you approach the literature, would you want to go with the literary point of it and evoke those emotions and those experiences from within yourself and apply them to that Naika who is there? Or you want to study the Naika outside and then internalize those qualities of that Naika and then enact them or present them when you're dancing is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is where the sky is the limit for your imagery, where you can connect everything. You can connect nature and then you can connect a small, okay, a very simple thing that we know, all of us know, is when you see the moon and you see his face and you say, oh, the moon is, it's embarrassed because it doesn't have the beauty that your face has. That's an imagery. Then you can go to any extent. Imagery is Anupama's forte, but you can go to any extent in your imagery that you want. But the trick is to know when to stop, how much to give, and what kind of audience. How is the audience oriented to this kind of an imagery that you are giving them? And it's always nice if the imagery is impromptu, it's just there, it comes there rather than a very structured and rehearsed imagery. And also the imagery has to go with that situation. Otherwise, what happens is the mood of the padam or the song is sidelined, and the audience is using the brain and the intellect to understand the imagery. Then what happens? It becomes a mind game. You don't want to make a padam or a javali a mind game. You want to make it an experience, right? So the trick is to use imagery to the extent that the experience is still in place. Did I answer you? Did you get that? I think she's muted. She's got a 1-year-old, so.
Yeah. No, I was saying that I totally understand. May I ask one more question, if that's okay? Just.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So I actually was. I understand what you're saying, Akka, completely. I was actually wondering in terms of even like when you were saying the sky is the limit, but at the same time you also did mention to another person that you can't that you have to look at the text to a certain extent and can't look at and you can't just assume that it's a Parakiya Naika if the text is saying that it is clearly a Sriya Naika, for example.
Yes, you can. No, so that's your framework.
Yeah.
That's your framework. Within that framework, you can just go to any extent. You have to define the borders are.
And what happens in a situation where it's not about naikas, but it's more about if you're performing for an audience that doesn't is not familiar with classical dance or is not familiar with narratives or is not familiar with the naikas.
So actually that's the beauty of Padams and Javalis. I'm glad you asked me this question. If you actually look at Padams and Javalis, much as I talk about 16th century, 18th century, 19th century, they are so contemporary if you actually look at them. Because
absolutely.
All the emotions, human emotions, are universal and they defy time. They are just the same. They may manifest differently. That's a different, that depends on your own psyche. But then what a person feels within the heart is the same. We will talk about women's emotions. Definitely you are jealous. Even if you are the leading CEO of a company, when your husband looks at somebody else, you are jealous. That's a common thing, you know. So that's what makes it very, very contemporary. Now the trick is when you are there for an audience who is not oriented to this kind of a cultural exposition, a little bit of orientation by talking will orient them, and then your exposition. We have a few who don't really come from this cultural background. Maybe they can tell us if this worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, thanks,
essentially,
Akka. Thank you.
Yashoda garu, we have a couple of more questions here in the chat. I will read them.
yes,
There's
sir.
one from Swapnasri Poredi garu about explaining the Devadasi way of presenting the Padam and Javali
Yeah.
and the Ganika's way of presenting differences.
That's what
So,
I said. It's
yeah.
quite a large explanation, so it's
Okay,
easy.
we'll skip that.
Yeah.
Okay, there is one more question from our Dr. Karthik Patel garu. He is talking about the performer is trained by the tradition, text, and the teachers. How is the audience or spectator trained?
So that's a big question, Karthik, because in our whole rasa theory itself, we talk about who is qualified to watch a performance. So Vasanta ma'am, our Sanskrit ma'am, sat me down and told me, explain this whole Abhinav Gupta's rasa theory one day. And she said the spectator has to come prepared to watch the performance. So when we say prepared, we are not, he or she doesn't necessarily have to have the whole historical background or the whole social background there. A open mind which is not sullied by the tiffs he had at the office or the bad traffic that he faced before coming into the auditorium. But after coming there, if the person can settle down and open themselves up and ready to receive what is happening there with a clear mind, and the artist there is inclusive and doesn't come with a chip on the shoulder and say this is a very niche art form, this is not for everybody. No, I don't believe in that at all. So you have to say, explain it to them, include them, open it up a little bit, and then begin. As I was saying, Karthik, these songs are contemporary. They may have been taken from there, but the emotions are still the same. We do fall in love outside marriage, let's face it.
Okay, thank you, Yashoda garu. There is one more question here in the chat. Given the time, I think that probably will be the final question. What is the difference between Sringara Padam and Javali on a literature level?
So, as I understand, I'm not an expert with literature, but I can talk limited to this part of it. Shrunga, as I was saying, the Padam, basically the way it is written is a little more, literature-wise, it is supposed to be a little hi-fi, a little higher in language, whatever that means. And the Javali is supposed to be something that is understood by common man too. But there are so many Javalis, I had to go to people and try to get the words. But then I do realize also that there are Javalis which have the native languages, the native words, very indigenous native words which are included in it, which we find difficult today with all our sophistication to understand. So there is not too much of a demarcation between the two, but then there is a difference in how you approach the Padam and the Javali. That makes a whole lot of difference. And as I was saying, the length of the lines generally in a Padam are longer. Having said that, there have been cases when a Padam has been converted into a Javali, mostly in the coastal Andhra region by the ladies, who make the tempo of the Padam faster and they break the lines down into shorter lines and they convert it into a Javali and make it more peppy and catchy for an audience to understand. So what would you call that? Would you call it a Padam or a Javali? So I would say let's not be rigid about understanding that.
Is it safe to say that Javali is a modernized version of Padam?
I would like to think of it as a completely different genre because as a performer, the way you approach a Padam and the way you approach a Javali is completely different. So there is a kind of joy, there is a kind of, sportiveness when you do a Javali. Even if it is a sad Javali, that there is a kind of bounce in the sad Javali itself. And it's a little playful. Would you want to put so much playfulness into a Padam? Questionable. So I would like to look at them as two different genres.
So, Yashoda Garu, looks like Ameya has a question.
Yes.
Namaskaram, Yashoda ma'am. One thing I was hoping you could touch on is, I think in the pieces that we saw today, in some cases it's kind of like the narrator, the Naika, talking, but then there's also that interaction with the hero or the other women or whatever the case may be. Can you talk a little bit about how to work through that, especially and also if possible the body language part of it? I think especially for those of us who are not who are growing up in another culture, those are a couple of things that are a little trickier to weave through.
Yes. So, in fact, I began with this initially, Ameya. I'll tell you what V.K. Rangarao Garu once did for me. He gave me a book called Sringarashtakam, and he said, this book has all songs from different Sanskrit, Telugu, and other areas written from the male perspective. The man, how the man perceives the woman in love. So I said, what is he thinking about me? I was much younger at that time. I wondered why he gave me this book. And he said, keep it with you. You may find it useful when you grow up. And by then I was 25. So when you say 17 padams, I say, wait. Now I realize when I read that, when you understand the male perspective, how the man has reacted and how the man would react in that particular situation, you know how to present the woman in that particular situation. So essentially, you are looking at it from your counterpart's point of view, who is not there, but you have created. Now, how would you use the body language is by reading Ameya. And I will say this, that films do help to quite an extent. The old films do help to quite an extent. But then to be caught up with the films is another danger, where everything becomes Savitri. We don't even want that. We want you to be dancing there. So you can use it as a reference point, but not get carried away by them. Reading mana literature law, the beauty about our literature is they give you that graphic detail of what jewelry was worn, where that Surya Chandra moved to in that particular act of love, or how that lady walked in that across the road. While she walked, how did the Jadagantal, what she wears on the braid, how the braid moved. So that kind of detail, reading works. Reading really works. So you might want to do that. And I would say just shut your doors, have the mirror on, and try them. Just keep doing it. Try them. Monkey around. Do what my son does. Just monkey. Keep doing it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So we have a question in the chat. Can you explain how the Dasakama avatars can be applied in Padams and Javalis, Yashoda Garu?
Yeah, we do this in detail in our university. I hope it's not a student of the university who's asking this, because we do it with demonstration and teaching. And okay. So the Dasakama avasthas, you basically have to understand them, experience them. As I was saying, it's all about internalizing them and then finding yourself. Dasakama avastha, okay. Who's this talking, Sridevi? I need to address the name.
Kartika.
Kartika. Okay, Kartika. Dasakama avasthas are quite an extreme in Sringara. And that is, where she goes to the extent of falling sick, swoon, and dying. Marana also is there. She will kill herself out of viraha. So that level of Sringara, if you can experience within you, please don't commit suicides and all. I'm just telling you, if you can feel that experience, if you can get that experience within yourself and make yourself sentient to these kind of emotions without judging them. The first block we face is when we judge the Naika. Don't judge the Naika. Just surrender to that Naika. Why are you taking it so personally? Surrender to the Naika, make it a part of yourself, perform it, and come back to yourself as Kartika. When you do a Surpanaka, you don't take it personally. Why do you want to take this Naika personally? I mean, say that if I do this Naika, I'll be branded as a Samanya or a Parakiya. Just do it and come back as an artist. But when you do it with complete involvement. Complete involvement. Yeah. So the whole thing is about evoking them within yourself, and then you must let it flow through you when you do the padam. Don't choreograph it. The thing with padams is that you must let that feeling flow through you. It takes time, but it's possible. It will happen. Niharika, I wanted to tell this to you also. It will happen if you are soaking in that vinegar all the time. You have to soak in it at every stage. Yeah?
Couldn't agree more, Akka. Thank you.
Right.
So does anyone have any more questions for Yashoda Garu?
Devi, we have an appreciation for Devi there. Yes, Preeti.
Yes, this is Preeti.
Yes.
It was a wonderful presentation, ma'am. My question is, while interpreting a padam, there would be various dimensions that one can see through, which is obviously based on one's own personal experiences, or it could be emotional, intellectual, or spiritual based on your exposure and experience. So my question here is, should exploring these dimensions be based on the literature that we are portraying here, or should it be based on your experiences? And if it's based on your own experiences, then how do we establish it to somebody who could not have experienced the same emotions or the same dimension?
Okay. So, a very important point about these padams and javalis is that it's not about you. It's really not about what you are. So I have, when people come to ask me for, that sitting down padam that you do or something else, can you teach me that padam? No, I don't want to learn the whole thing. I just want to learn this padam and I'll pay you for that. Then I say, no, I'll teach you something else, which says, if it's a 1 hour with you, it will cost you 1 bag of gold coins. If it's 1.5 hours, it will cost you 2. Are you game to do this? And they said, no, I don't think I'm that, I'm not that Naika. I don't care what Naika you are of the stage. You can be anybody. But when you come here to perform a particular padam or you want to learn that padam, you have to be open to accepting it and doing it and then go back to your own self. Now, the question is, a person who has not experienced it, what happens? Now, there is the Stanislavski theory, the Western theory, where they say, Stanislavski says, use your memory to evoke that emotion from within you for that to portray that particular character. This is totally not the Indian aesthetic, because we say it's not you. It is that character that Naika that has to be portrayed, which means you have to do a lot of homework, Preeti. We are coming back to that. So, which means there is a lot of understanding that Naika. You read that Naika, you read other characters around that Naika, how they would react. And there is something called just sitting and internalizing that Naika. This is a process. You have to sit. This is a meditation for us. And internalize that Naika and see how many different ways you might want to evoke that Naika from within yourself. And then you begin to portray. This is a whole process, Devi, Preeti. It might take you one full lifetime to do one padam. Doesn't matter. When you work on these lines on one song, doing other padams becomes easier. So if you don't have to experience anything. I do Samanya Naikas day in, day out. I'm not categorized as a Samanya Naika in my social status, at least. So, but then I do understand the Samanya Naika because I love them. I'm open to them. I'm not judging the Naika. So the first trick is to not judge them and make them inclusive. అది పెళ్లి చేసుకుని ఇంకొకళ్ళ వెంట తిరుగుతుంది. She's married and she goes after another person. No, I'm not doing that padam. Finished. You've closed the door there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Yashoda Garu or Devi Garu?
Amy,
Okay.
ma'am has not spoken to me. You spoke in every webinar, ma'am. You didn't speak to me.
There is a question that is for Yashoda ma'am. It is harder to do javalis than devotional content because with bhakti orientation, we have decontextualized and it is ephemeral. But with padams and javalis, can't we afford to be transgressive?
Transgressive. Can that be explained a little bit? You are transgressing when you do a padam and a javali. Anyway, you are, depending on the content of the padam. Okay, I'll answer the first part of it. Meanwhile, let that person tell you, is it leaning towards transgender or is it talking about transgressing limits? Let him or her tell you about that. Okay, tell you about that. But the first part of it, it is easier to do a bhakti than a javali. Yes, it is, because I'll tell you why. Because we have been taught, we have been told during our colonial training, that's my dear train going, the colonial training has told you that your Ramayana and your Mahabharata, your epics are all mythology. You know, they're all imagined. They are not history. Right? Today we are talking about Ramayana being 5,000 years old, Mahabharata being 3,000 years old, and giving evidences to it. Still, they are far removed. They are 5,000 years ago, so it's okay to do Putana. It's okay. But the Kuchipudi male is very happy to do Hiranyakashipa, where he's chopping the heads of all the rishis, and he's happy to do Kichaka, who is a womanizer, is a modest word to talk about that character. But he's glorified and he's very happy, and they will vie to do that character. What is our problem in doing a Samanya Naika who is in love or who does it for profession to feed herself? Why are we judging that character so much? Because you are happy to talk about bhakti, because what is the difference between bhakti and Shringara? Yeah? Both are total surrender. They are complete surrender. Maybe you don't have the physical part of it in bhakti, you may not want to. I apply physical part to bhakti also, that's my prerogative. But you may not want to do it, you might want to do kirtana, smarana and all that, that's fine. So if you don't want to do the javali in the hardcore Shringara aspect, or you don't want to do the padam in the Shringara that is written in the literature, please don't do that padam at all. Don't do an antiseptic version of it. Do another song. And Papu sir once told me that during the 20th century, there was a period when Amalina Shringara was rampant, and there was literature on Amalina Shringara, where it is all platonic love, the songs on platonic love. Perfect. Pick those songs and do them. Why do you have to take an extreme erotic song and wash it off its Shringara and do it as an antiseptic piece? I think it's unfair. You don't want one piece of letter that you write to be edited by somebody else. What gives you the right to take off the Shringara from a song that's written in a particular pattern? Did I answer that question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yashoda Garu, Shanti Priya Garu has a question.
Second part of the question, Undi Sridevi.
Okay.
Second part. Transgression, yes. During the Nayaka period, it was all about violation, and it was all about, love outside marriage. So if you're doing it in the padam, if it is there in the padam, yes, you do it. It is not me. Please be me. Please make it yourself when you're doing the padam. And do it only when it has become you. Do the padam and come back to yourself. Yeah, Miss Anamika. Okay. Shanti.
Hi, Yashoda ma'am. That was a beautiful presentation, Devi and Yashoda ma'am. So my question is about Kshetraya Padams. Recently, we've gone through a few Padams as part of the course, and does the tone for most of these padams change in like the third charanam and fourth charanam, enabling us to transition from like one avastha to avastha?
The avastha doesn't change, Shanti. The basic mood doesn't change. The tone may get more intense. It will get more intense. In fact, I hate to do one charanam or two charanams of a padam, but sometimes I have to do it in demonstrations. But it begins at one point. The pallavi generally gives you the idea of the padam. But then if you're choreographing the padam or the javali, it is good for you to read. It is imperative that you read the whole thing and internalize it. That particular mood that it has begun in, or the avastha or the naika, whatever it is, will only get more and more intense with each charanam. It will not change generally. The naika will not change. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ma'am, one more question. Do we have any padams or javalis where transgenders are shown?
Not to my knowledge. There's a Sugandha ma'am, you've given a fantastic.
Sugandha ma'am has.
That's a perfect, and I haven't worked on that side of it. Yes, transgender already looks at himself or herself as a naika or the naika. So that closes the question. Already they are in one category. Thank you so much for that, ma'am.
Yeah, so I would like to thank everyone. And also, of course, thank Yashoda Garu and Devi Garu for the wonderful presentation. Of course, although I'm not into fine arts, but I've really enjoyed all your explanations. So thank you both. And I just also want to mention that Raji Garu had to leave the webinar. He had to attend another meeting. So that's why he had to leave. But again, on behalf of University of Silicon Andhra, thank you all for being here. And of course, next Friday, again, we have another webinar. So hope to see you, at least most of you, next Friday. So thank you, Yashoda Garu, and thank you, Devi Garu, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. Thank you.